Good afternoon, Ms. Ramirez. Thank you for meeting with me today. Sorry for the delay. The purpose for our meeting today is to go over some stuff about your son's academic progress. First of all, let me just say that I'm so thrilled to have Zane in my classroom. He's a very bright boy, and I'm sure you're very proud of him, as you should be, because he is extremely smart, and he makes me laugh. With that said, the main reason for us sitting together today is I want to review Zane's test scores with you. We recently received his scores from the achievement test called the Iowa Skills of Basic Test, which we took a few months back in February. Because these scores are recent, they really give us a feel for where he is at currently in his academic progress. However, some of the things on this test we may not have covered in class, so just keep that in mind as we go over his scores, okay?
Okay, what is an achievement test?
Oh, an achievement test is simply a test that helps to assess your child's level of knowledge in different content areas. For this test, Zane was tested in content areas of reading, language, math, social studies, and science. Just to give you some basic background knowledge of this test, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills has been used on students since 2005, so it's been around for a while and considered to be reliable. Let us look at this top portion of this test now. This portion is called the norm referenced information. This section tells us where Zane stands compared to other fourth grade students who first took this test, which we call the norm group.
What exactly is the norm group?
Okay, the norm group, well, the norm group is a group of students that were selected to take this same test before it was approved for public testing, and those students' scores are used to compare other students' scores to. The size of the norm group for this test was 1,500 fourth grade students from various backgrounds and nationalities, and that's just to ensure the reliability of this test. So now I want us to take a look at the area at the top of this. It says test. Here, the core total tells us your son's average score for reading, language, and math. Then you have the composite total, which tells us the core total items plus social studies and science subjects added in. Any questions about that?
No.
No? Okay. On the right side of the section, this shows Zane's national percentile rate, or the NPR. This rate tells us the percentage rate of how well he did compared to the normal group of students. For example, his first NPR here is 75 for vocabulary. That tells us that Zane scored better than 75% of the norm group of students. So he did very well. His lowest score was in spelling, which he received a score of 46. However, this is not bad because if you look at the bell curve here that I have, 46 is just barely below average. So he's still within the normal average range. Overall, he did very well on all his scores, as you can see here, because here's the normal range, and he's right about there where he needs to be.
Why do the percentages have a band around the scores?
Okay, the band here is, the reason for that is to allow room for errors. It's believed that every test has errors on it. So test makers establish what is called a standard error of measurement, and this measurement just basically allows for a cushion around the test scores, and it deviates plus or minus a few points. And that's just, again, just to ensure that his score is not due to errors.
Are any of Zane's scores close to being outside the normal range?
Yes, actually, he scored very high in his usage and expression, which was 85%. That puts him borderline for being above average here. So he's right at the border on that one. Now this SS here stands for standard score.
What does that mean?
The standard score is a raw score that is plugged into a formula, and from that the test makers created a range. And this range is scored for fourth graders on a range from 80 to 400, where 200 is the midpoint, the median, the average score. And as you can see here, Zane's score of 210 is just slightly above average on this bell curve. So he did very well again on those. Next, we have the GE, which stands for grade equivalent. Grade equivalents are scores that indicate the average score of a student and students in the norm group. These scores are based on the school year and month. And what I mean by that is Zane scored a 5.5 here. That means he scored like what a fifth grader would in their fifth month of the school year.
Does that mean my child should skip a grade level?
No, not necessarily. There's a lot of their maturity levels, but also all the core curriculum that they are faced with in the fourth grade. You don't want him to miss out on all of that. If he misses out on that, it could affect him in the fifth grade level. So as you can see from his test scores, he's scoring about average. He's either slightly below or slightly above average. So he's right within range where he needs to be for the fourth grade. Next, we have Zane's Stay 9 score, which is a scoring system that is broken down into 9 parts. The numbers 1, 2, and 3 indicate a below average score. The numbers 4, 5, and 6 are about average, and the numbers 7, 8, and 9 are above average scores. So for example, Zane scored a 5 in his spelling, and so that score is average. As you can see, the 5 is in the midpoint here. Any questions so far? No? Okay. All right, next let's look at the bottom portion of this test. This portion gives us the criterion referenced information.
What does that mean?
The criterion referenced information is simply information based on specific content areas. They break it down into the specifics. This portion of the test tells us how your son did in those areas. And I like to look at those scores. That way it helps me to see where I may have some gaps in my teaching and where also Zane may need some additional help. So go ahead and take a look at the list of these subtest area here and tell me if you have any questions in regards to that section.
Yes, I see that Zane scored low in one area with capitalization.
Okay.
Should I be concerned about that?
No, I don't think that there's any reason for you to be concerned about that, because as you see, there was only 3 questions, and he got all 3 of those questions wrong, but it's dealing with capitalizing names of organizations and groups, and we haven't really covered that in class, so it's kind of expected for him to score that way. The only thing I would suggest is when you're out and about, just point those out to him when you see organizations' names and stuff, just emphasizing him, hey, Zane, you know, those are supposed to be capitalized, and I will try to do the same for him in class whenever we cover that chapter. Okay. For each of the content areas listed, you see at the top the total number of questions that Zane was asked, and this is the total number that he attempted to answer. So for instance, for vocabulary, he had a total of 34 items. He answered all 34 of those items, and the next one is the percent he got correct out of those 34. He got 76% correct out of the 34 questions, whereas across the nation, the rest of the 4th grade students got 58% correct. So he's actually doing better than most of the average students across the nation for that section. So his score is about mid-range. Now he scored very high in his history, which is an area that he seems to know a lot about. He did a very good job on his report over the Alamo, as you can see here. He included many details, and he wrote almost 3 pages about it. So he's doing very well in that area. He had detailed drawings. I just love his report. So he did very well. It looks like he could use some help, though, with his spelling, but that's completely normal for his age. As you can see here from one of his spelling tests, there was a few that he did miss. But again, that's completely normal for his age. Most of my students do struggle with their spelling, so that's nothing to be concerned about. And again, just emphasize with him about the capitalizing of the organizations. And at this point, I think that he's doing very well, and I don't see any reason that he will not progress in 5th grade. So he should do very well. Just take this home with you and look over it and review it. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me. Okay? Thank you very much for meeting with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.